This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This podcast contains adult themes and language, and some of the things that we discuss may be disturbing to some listeners. In this podcast, we discuss sexual assault, torture, race, and murder. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care of yourself.
Now we're going to get into the early life of Darrell Edward Brooks Jr. Hit it, Beth.
Darrell Edward Brooks Jr. was born on February 21st, 1982 in Milwaukee. Darrell was raised by his mother, Dawn Woods. His father was out of the picture. Darrell later claimed that he had a terrible childhood with his mother working 2 or 3 jobs at a time. She was just trying to survive, but I'm sure he felt neglected.
Yeah, and did you watch any of the courtroom footage or listen to any of that?
A little bit, not much, because he drove me nuts.
It was challenging. I listened to the whole court proceedings.
My God. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I listened to it to go to bed for the past 3 days.
God.
I know. I'm a nutcase. But anyway, his point of view is different than reality. So he says he has a terrible childhood, but I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is. That's what he said.
That's my impression.
Yeah.
So he said that they lived in poverty. Their apartment was infested with insects and rodents, and that live bugs were often found in their morning cereal, jaw on the floor. He mentioned growing up without a father, standing with his mother in the welfare line to receive milk and cheese, and that he'd been bullied and made fun of, which I'm not discounting. That is difficult.
Right.
But
there's a lot of people out there that have gone through this and they never killed anybody, so.
Yeah.
According to his grandmother, in 1994, at the age of 12, Darrell was hospitalized for mental health conditions and diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which I don't know that they can diagnose a child of 12 with bipolar. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know for sure, but it's my understanding they don't really diagnose those kinds of disorders until they're older, but I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, and to your point, it's pre-adolescent, so he's like a preteen.
Right.
But also, black young people are often misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, the whole gamut, because white providers were not trained on how to identify symptoms and diagnose black people, black minds in the psychology field, or black bodies in the internist or any other field. And so,
and I wonder if he was misdiagnosed.
I thought that a lot throughout my research of the case, for reals.
Yeah. So according to his mother, Darrell has bipolar disorder and a personality disorder. And without his medication, he gets explosive when he panics or is afraid.
As a teenager, Brooks started getting into trouble with the law. In 1999, when Darrell was 15, he was charged with substantial battery. That's a new one for me.
I never heard that one before.
Yeah, substantial battery.
Substantial.
So it must have been very bad. After attacking a man with it was bad.
Yeah.
After attacking a man with a knife. After pleading guilty, he received 6 months. So how old is he? He's 15. 6 months in the House of Correction, a dormitory-style facility in Franklin, and 3 years probation. What were you going to say?
It doesn't even sound real, the House of Correction. It sounds like something from the Blues Brothers, you know?
Oh, well,
They got released from the House of Correction.
I was thinking it sounded like the name of a horror movie.
Yeah, it could be the name of a horror movie.
House of Correction. Ooh,
the House of Correction.
Bone chilling. I don't want to go there.
Brooks's mother later released a statement to reporters saying that as a child, Darrell received counseling and was on medication. But when he became an adult, quote, a decision was made that he no longer suffered from a mental illness. That decision left him with no insurance or financial means to pay for medication and necessary counseling, unquote. And I'm assuming this is the state, like maybe he was on Medicaid, and they decided he was suffering from mental illness and he no longer.
Yeah.
I don't know, though.
And that will, I think, get to some systems issues that
right.
I'll talk about in my takeaways. There's a lot of systems at play here that led to this, and that was one that failed. So she added, quote, instead of offering help and resources to combat the problem, a jail cell was given. Man, his mom, is she a writer? Because bars. A jail cell was given instead of solving the problem. She also says, quote, over and over again, when mental illness is not properly treated, the person becomes sicker and sicker, just like any other illness, by the way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go away once a person becomes an adult, unquote.
Yeah. Where's the lie?
Yeah, not one detected.
Yeah.
Now, it's timeline time. Let's get into the timeline. What do you got for us, Beth? What happened? What happened?
Well,
come to find out. Sorry. Matter of fact.
Between 2002 and 2003, Brooks was charged with 2 low-level crimes, marijuana possession and misdemeanor obstruction, in Milwaukee County. He was sentenced to a total of 70 days in the House of Correction.
He had to go back there?
Had to go back there.
Ooh. Then, in 2006, Brooks, who was 24, was convicted of statutory sexual seduction after impregnating a 15-year-old girl in Sparks, Nevada.
Ugh. Gross.
And he was required to register as a sex offender.
In 2007, a documentary about methamphetamine addiction called Crystal Darkness was released. It features an interview with Brooks while he was in jail in Reno, Nevada. In it, he says, quote, you actually become the drug, not even a human being. I was just something vile, disgusting, despicable, unquote. And this is the only reference to meth that I found.
Okay.
So I don't know if he was doing it when he was living in Nevada and that's it, or he kept doing it or never actually was doing it. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to say something maybe controversial.
Okay.
But in my life, in the recovery spaces, people don't just casually start and stop doing meth. And so if there was no treatment in the part of the story, my impression is he was still involved with
if he was doing
that substance. Yeah, or something.
I don't even know if he was actually doing it. Because doing drugs. Because
I've been wanting to say that for so long.
Because this is the only reference to drugs in this story at all. And he may have just wanted to be in the documentary.
Maybe, because I think there's no reference to this in our script, but he was also an aspiring rapper, and there's video of him on YouTube rapping.
Okay.
But I didn't listen, and so I didn't analyze his lyrics.
Don't know if he's any good.
So I don't know if there's references to other illicit drug use within those lyrics. But
so anyway, just stuff to think about.
Yeah, certainly. So on February 24th, 2010, Brooks was charged with strangulation, battery, and criminal damage to property in Wood County, Wisconsin, after a woman told police he had shoved her to the ground during an argument and grabbed her throat.
Brooks pleaded no contest to the strangulation charge and was found guilty. The other counts were dismissed as part of a plea agreement. He was sentenced to 90 days in jail with work release and 3 years probation.
In March of 2011, in Milwaukee County, during a traffic stop, when he was pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt, Brooks turned on his car and put it into drive.
Oh, geez.
And the officer said he was afraid that Brooks was going to run him over. He was charged with resisting an officer. Sounds appropriate.
Yeah, you don't do that. Not a good idea.
Nope.
His probation was revoked from the Wood County strangulation case, and he was sent to jail for 11 months. The following year, Brooks pleaded guilty for resisting an officer in the Milwaukee traffic stop, and he was sentenced to 37 days in the House of Correction.
Again.
We're
going to have to, maybe we'll have to do a deep dive into this House of Correction. It sounds like a house of scary stuff.
Yeah.
In November of 2012, a sex offender sweep in Nevada found that Brooks had provided a false address on his registration. In June of 2016, police in Sparks, Nevada, arrested Brooks for failing to obey sex offender laws. He had not been in compliance with the registry since 2008. That's a long-ass time for a predator to be
8
out.
years.
Yeah.
So I guess he just wasn't providing them with his address. Is that what it was? I think so.
Yeah, another system failure. Yeah.
Right. Brooks posted bail in that case, but later failed to appear in court. A warrant was issued for his arrest. It's unclear exactly when Brooks moved back to Wisconsin after this, but once he did so, he had 10 days to register as a sex offender in Wisconsin. And guess what? He never did.
Yep. Another system failure. So despite repeated contacts with Wisconsin law enforcement, no one, not a one person, realized he was a sex offender until the parade attack. And that is unfortunate for everybody.
Yeah, another system failure.
Mm-hmm.
In July of 2020, pandemic times, Brooks was accused of firing a gun at his nephew and another person during an argument in Milwaukee. Thankfully, no one was injured in the shooting, but he was charged with 2 counts of second-degree reckless endangering safety and 1 count of felon in possession of a firearm. And bail was set at $10,000. That's the highest one yet.
Yeah, and bail reform will come up later on in the story, but I keep reiterating that there are systems and laws and people that are supposed to follow them and check that things are done and file this and that, and people didn't do that. And then add the pandemic on top of that.
Yeah, it was a mess.
There was a lot of things slipping through the cracks, I think.
Right.
And so the next month, Brooks entered a speedy trial demand, and his attorney argued for lower bail. The judge agreed and set it at $7,500. In February of 2021, Brooks was scheduled for a jury trial, but his trial could not proceed because of another ongoing trial in the courtroom. And that was, personally, I had a lot of trials. All my trials were canceled in 2020 because of the pandemic.
So there was a backup of trials.
Yeah, so they were like, all criminal trials first, and civil ones were put to the back burner.
Right.
But even the criminal trials the court system is already overloaded with too much. So it just delayed things even further.
Yeah. So his case was postponed and bail lowered to $500, which was posted days later. Brooks was ordered to have no contact with a number of people, including his own mother.
In March of 2021, a Waukesha County prosecutor asked for Brooks to be found in contempt of court and violation of court orders in a long-running child support case. Brooks received a stayed sentence of 120 days in jail with work release privileges to be imposed any time in the next 2 years if he didn't make his monthly payments in full.
In May of 2021, Brooks was arrested in Union City, Georgia, in a domestic violence case. A man told police that he confronted Brooks after hearing what sounded like Brooks beating a woman on the other side of a wall in a hotel.
I was just noticing that Brooks is going from Nevada, which is on the west side of the country, to Georgia, to the Midwest,
south,
which is in the middle. Like, how is he affording all these plane tickets?
And
I haven't seen my family in 5 years. How does he
might have been driving around. I don't know.
Good point.
Yeah.
So Brooks received a signature bond, meaning he signed a document promising to show up for future court dates. And, of course, he never showed.
In June of 2021, Brooks appeared in Milwaukee County Court in person with his attorney for a status hearing in his 2020 shooting case. His trial in the 2020 shooting case was postponed due to court congestion, meaning that other cases needed to be heard in the courtroom. And again, this was happening a lot during this time because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right. On November 2nd, 2021, police were called to a domestic violence incident at a gas station in Milwaukee. Erica Patterson, Brooks's girlfriend and mother of one of his children, told police that she had refused to get into Brooks' SUV. So he punched her in the face and then ran her over as she walked through the gas station parking lot.
Jesus Christ.
Leaving her with a bloody face and tire tracks on her leg.
Yikes.
Yeah, just what would possess a human to do that to another human?
To do something
is my
like
question.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Brooks was arrested and booked into Milwaukee County Jail. As part of the intake process, sheriff's deputies checked the National Crime Information Center for his background. The years-long open warrant for skipping court in Nevada and his recent arrest in Georgia had not been entered by those agencies, another system failure.
Mm-hmm.
So they did not appear on the report.
And these system failures harm subsequent people, other people.
Yeah.
So on November 3rd, Brooks called his mother from Milwaukee County Jail and said prosecutors wouldn't be able to pursue the domestic violence case if the victim did not cooperate. Jail calls are recorded, and sometimes criminals forget that. So the next day, Brooks called the victim, Erica Patterson, and it was the first of several calls trying to get her to take back her account to the police.
Watch the world's biggest tennis stars clash in the California desert at the BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel.
How do they get to these shots?
Tune in daily for exclusive first ball to last coverage from Indian Wells and witness all of the jaw-dropping action as the game's top men and women square off at one of the greatest events in sports. It's tennis magic you need to see to believe. The BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel and streaming on the Tennis Channel app.
From DNA testing to the Dixie Mafia, Crime Capsule brings you new stories of true crime in American history. I'm your host, Benjamin Morris. Join us for exclusive interviews with authors from Arcadia Publishing, writing the hottest books on the most chilling stories of our country's past. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts or on evergreenpodcasts.com. Crime Capsule. History so interesting, it's criminal.
Brooks made a total of 11 calls, 2 to his mother and 9 to Erica, trying to keep her from cooperating. That included 6 phone calls after he was charged in the case, and a no-contact order with Erica was put in place. He both threatened her and coerced her, even offering marriage in exchange for dropping the charges.
Nigga, I don't want to marry you. Oh my God, are you fucking nuts? So a mill.
Yeah, I think there's a little narcissism in there.
Like,
yeah, just
wait,
a little.
I mean, are you?
A touch.
Wait, are you serious? You think you're a prize? You think you're a prize? Oh my God, what is this? Am I being punked? Oh my God, just yeah, narcissism to the max. So a Milwaukee County Court commissioner set Brooks's bail at $1,000. Despite a pretrial risk assessment that found Brooks was a very high risk of committing another crime. In 2021, Milwaukee County was really, really backlogged, and this is a systems issue again.
According to Erica Birma, a criminal defense attorney, quote, "A lot of courts in the populated counties may have reevaluated bond decisions in a way that they wouldn't have done pre-COVID," unquote.
Yeah, I mean, it was unprecedented, but
they were releasing people more than they had before or dropping bonds lower because they were overcrowded.
Yeah. I don't know what else could have been done. That's above my pay grade, but
yeah, it was a problem.
Yeah, it was a problem. And certainly I think a lot of more effort could have been devoted to speaking to community people, speaking to leaders in the community, activists
but I think everybody was also like overworked and exhausted.
That too. That too. You're right. You're absolutely right. That's my friend Beth. She's very smart. Now, similar patterns played out across the country during the pandemic as courts sought to reduce jail crowding as they struggled to catch up on delayed trials.
On November 11th, Brooks's mother posted his bail, and he was released on November 16th, 5 days before the parade attack. But he had a hold from the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department related to his open child support case, so he was taken directly to Waukesha County Jail.
Brooks appeared before the Waukesha County Court Commissioner. The prosecutor wanted the jail time to be imposed immediately. Brooks claimed that he could not pay his child support because he had been in custody for 6 months in Georgia during that time.
Aww.
Oh, sorry. Your kids still need food and diapers, so...
2 days before the parade attack, Brooks was allowed to be released on his own recognizance. No one in court that day checked Wisconsin's online court records, which actually showed that Brooks had appeared in person in Milwaukee County in the middle of the time frame. He said that he was in custody in Georgia, so it was a lie.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I'll get into this later, but he has a lot of experience with the courts,
yes,
which is why I think he was so confident to do what he did at the end of the story.
Yeah.
So at the same time, Waukesha was preparing for its annual Christmas parade. In 2020, the parade had been canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but in 2021, it was back, and the city was also celebrating its 125th anniversary.
The parade is the official kickoff to the holiday season in downtown Waukesha and one of the city's biggest events of the year. The theme of the 58th annual event held on Sunday, November 21st, was comfort and joy.
The irony of that theme after what happened is wild.
Yeah.
So there were more than 60 entries, including the Waukesha Fire Department, the Old Car Club, high school marching bands, dance troops, Little League sports teams, and Santa, scheduled to march through downtown. It's a family-friendly event that draws spectators from other counties even.
On that Sunday, local residents gathered in the downtown area of Waukesha, and the crowd lined both sides of the road. People stood or sat in chairs that they had brought and were bundled up against the cold. Wisconsin Mayor Sean Riley described seeing smiling children and happy parents as he marched along the parade route.
I mean, we can all imagine, we've all been there, right? A wonderful Christmas parade. It's cold. You got the hot cocoa. We got our chairs. We walked 45 minutes just to get to this spot. You know, it's a thing. It's a big event. It's
celebratory.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And sometime after the parade started at 4, police were called to the scene of a domestic disturbance involving Brooks and Erica Patterson. According to Erica, the two argued in his SUV before he started driving. And he was, quote, driving around with one hand on the steering wheel and striking her in the face with the other hand, unquote. Monstrous.
Yeah, awful. She eventually got free and called her friends for help. Brooks fled the scene in his red Ford Escape. How apropos. An escape.
Yeah.
Just as officers...
Wow. Wait, what? I didn't even put that together.
Yeah.
Wow. Hang on. I need a hip hop air horn because that is, you know what? I'll just do applause. Yeah. Yeah. Good job, Beth. Good job. Good job. Proud of you.
So as he's escaping in his red Escape, officers were arriving. Then just before 4:40 p.m., less than an hour after the parade started, Brooks encountered the Christmas parade.
Videos from the scene show the vehicle speeding down the street, reportedly at 40 miles per hour. At first, passing by the participants as spectators watched from the sidewalks. Then the SUV started swerving and plowing into people.
Witnesses said the driver seemed to be swerving on purpose as if to cause as much damage as possible. They could hear the thuds as the SUV struck people and described bodies being thrown into the air.
Some people ran into nearby stores. Many were screaming and crying as police officers ran down the street, telling people to get off the street. Spectators spoke about the shock and horror of witnessing an act of violence at what was supposed to be a family-friendly event.
Tyler Kotlerek, 28, was watching the parade with his family members when they heard what at first sounded like cheering, but then they realized it was screams. Quote, "It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life," unquote.
Yeah, I listened to a lot of interviews of the witnesses, and it was horrifying.
Horrible, yeah.
Corey Montijo, a school district of Waukesha board member, said that his daughter's youth dance team, composed of girls between the ages of 9 and 15 years old, had been hit. He said, quote, "There were pom-poms and shoes and spilled hot chocolate everywhere. I had to go from one crumpled body to another to find my daughter," unquote. And thankfully for him, his daughter was okay.
Yeah.
But many were not.
Yeah. When the SUV got to the end of the parade route, it burst through barricades and sped away from the scene. A law enforcement officer can be seen in one video chasing the SUV by foot for a short distance. That officer shot 3 rounds into the SUV but failed to stop it. Brooks was not hit by the bullets, and thankfully no bystanders were injured by gunfire either. Which, I can't believe he shot at the... I mean, I understand why he wanted to shoot at the SUV, but with all those people around, that's crazy.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And very unsafe. And
yes. I'm glad nobody got hit.
Another police system failure, if you ask me. So, yeah, I'm glad nobody got hurt. Initially, it was reported that 5 people had died and 48 others had been injured. 3 of the dead were members of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies, a dance group composed solely of grandmothers. Many of the injured were children.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
Murdered were 81-year-old Bill Hospel, who was known to be very active despite his age, and he encouraged others to be active as well. He was an avid outdoorsman, loved dancing with his wife Lola, and square dancing with their son Brian and daughter Lori. He and Lola had also recently started playing pickleball.
Oh, of course they did, because it was 2020.
Yeah.
I love that. And Lola was a member of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies, a dance troupe made up all of grandmothers. The grannies were dancing in the parade, and Bill was helping out, passing out water when he was struck and killed. Lola was also injured, but she survived.
79-year-old Ginny Sorensen was the leader of the Dancing Grannies. She was a retired nurse. Ginny's granddaughter posted a tribute on Facebook in her honor saying, "My grandmother taught me everything I needed to know in life. So happy and proud to be following in her footsteps as a nurse." She also wrote, "I'll become the best nurse possible" in her honor.
That's beautiful. Lee Owen, 71, was also a member of the Dancing Grannies and had been for 12 years. She never missed a practice and loved her fellow members like sisters. A mother and a grandmother, she had worked as an apartment manager for nearly 10 years. She was also passionate about animals and had rescued many cats and dogs throughout her life.
Tammy Durand, 52, was also a member of the Dancing Grannies, and it was Tammy's first time dancing with them. She worked as a hospice and critical care chaplain. She was doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
According to WISC News, Tammy once saved a man from drowning in the Wisconsin River.
Wow. That's incredible. Oh, Jane Kulik, 52, worked for Citizens Bank and was representing them in the parade. The bank shared on Facebook, quote, "Jane was a mother and a grandmother who joined the bank just over 1 year ago. In that time, she shared her bright spirit with everyone around her," unquote. She was also a longtime server at Dave's Family Restaurant in Waukesha.
All Waukesha public schools were closed that Monday, with counselors made available during the school day at the schools for any of the students in need of the services. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers ordered all U.S. and state flags to be flown at half-mast.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the investigation and the arrest. So shortly after the attack, Brooks knocked on the door of a local homeowner asking to come inside and use his phone. The resident, not yet knowing of the parade attack, said Brooks looked thin and cold.
He made him a sandwich and let him borrow a jacket.
Wow.
Yeah, really nice guy.
That's Midwest nice.
Yeah,
that is Midwest nice if I ever did see it. Wow.
But he asked Brooks to leave after about 10 minutes when he started getting nervous because a police car was driving up and down the street. Brooks was arrested minutes later as he stood on the porch of a house.
And I don't think I'm imagining this, but I heard audio of Brooks saying, "Please call me an Uber. Please call me an Uber so I can get out of here. I gotta go. Please call me an Uber." That was at this point.
So when he asked to use the phone, I think his excuse was that he was trying to call an Uber.
Okay, got it. So Brooks, after he was arrested, was charged with 5 counts of homicide. By November 23rd, 2 days after the incident, the number of people reported injured had increased to 62, and the number of fatalities had increased to 6 after 8-year-old little Jackson Sparks died at the hospital.
Jackson was the youngest fatality. He was in the parade with his older brother Tucker, who was 12, and they were marching with their Little League baseball team when they were both hit. Tucker suffered a skull fracture and survived, but little Jackson did not.
Darrell Brooks was charged with dozens of felonies, including 5 charges of first-degree intentional homicide. He wore an anti-suicide smock and cried as the judge informed him that each crime carried a sentence of life in prison.
His bail was set at $5 million. Good.
Mm-hmm.
After the death of 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, a 6th homicide charge was added.
And First Lady Jill Biden met privately with the victims' family members and attended a memorial to the victims on December 15th. Moving on to the trial. Hit it, Beth.
Here we go.
Oh, this is a doozy.
What
do you
it.
got?
Yeah. Brooks was charged, as I said, with 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, then also 71 other counts. Brooks declared himself a sovereign citizen, fired his attorney, and was representing himself.
What did they say? A fool represents himself. I don't know. There's basically a dumbass represents himself.
A man who represents himself has a fool for a client or something like that. I don't
Thank
know.
you. That's my
Fool
smart
for
friend.
A lawyer?
One or the other. One or the other. This is basically
He's an idiot, in other words.
This is a dumb move.
Yeah,
but
don't
again,
do that.
I think he must have felt confident because he had
and also
been
if
through
he
the legal system
was
so much.
narcissistic,
Mm-hmm.
then he would be like,
Yes.
"Oh, of course I can do this." Yeah.
Law school. So
Who needs it?
So he continually spouted points from the pseudo-legal sovereign citizen movement, a large anti-government extremist movement whose adherents believe the government is the illegitimate product of a conspiracy that subverted the original lawful government. The movement claims that people don't need to follow the U.S. legal system. And I gotta say, I thought this was white shit.
Yeah. So
That mostly white dudes do this. But
it's, from what I understand, it comes from some racist stuff. So I think it started out as white shit, and there's like the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
There's some kind of tie to the Civil War. I don't know a whole lot about this sovereign citizens movement, except it's really stupid. And they it's almost like they think they can say abracadabra and they get out of things, but it doesn't ever work. It never works. So I don't know why they think that.
I don't know either. But I went down a Reddit rabbit hole. And you remember when Wesley Snipes got popped for not paying his taxes?
No, I don't.
Well,
But
his argument was he was a sovereign citizen.
are you serious?
Uh-huh.
Oh, no. So,
So-
yeah, there is a black sovereign citizens movement
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, it's again, I thought it was mostly white shit and white violent extremist terrorist shit.
and it is.
Yes, and it still
But
is. The thing
still
is,
is.
this movement is not going anywhere. It is
Yeah.
growing. So be
It's
on the lookout.
ridiculous.
Look alive, y'all.
So Brooks attempted to delay his trial numerous times, but it began on October 3rd, 2022. He was repeatedly removed to a separate courtroom to participate via video because of his behavior. Brooks talked over the judge, repeatedly asked irrelevant questions, and refused to follow directions. When in the second courtroom, he often engaged in angry, animated hand gestures because they cut off his mic.
Yeah. The judge kept muting him. Shout out to this judge, though, because this was a hard case I think, for anybody to preside over.
Yeah.
And this judge, she didn't that's it. I'm holding. Do you remember the courtroom scene in Ghostbusters when the judge was like, "That's it, I'm holding you in contempt," and then Slimer comes in and everything is like chaos. She
it wasn't
avoided
like that.
that.
Huh?
Yeah, and she did a good job. So the prosecution called several witnesses to the stand, almost all of which gave emotional testimony about what they saw during the attack. Brooks was allowed to cross-examine the witnesses. His questions were designed to cast doubt that he was the one driving.
His own car.
Yeah. And I learned this about the sovereign citizens, is that they kept saying the state of Wisconsin versus Mr. Brooks. And he was like, his argument was the state of Wisconsin is not a real entity. It's not a person. It's not somebody alive. So therefore, I'm not guilty.
It doesn't exist.
I think that's where he was going, but
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
My name is Bill Huffman, and I am a former Cleveland news producer, and I am now the host of the podcast, Who Killed? I began the show focusing on the unsolved murder of Amy Mihaljevic, and now each week I explore a different case with a focus on some of the victims who don't get the attention they deserve. I have a deep catalog of over 225 episodes, so there is a guarantee there will be something for you. Who Killed is an evergreen podcast, killer podcasts, and slow burn media production. Subscribe today wherever you get your favorite shows.
And on October 26, 2022, Darrell Brooks was found guilty on all counts. The jury deliberated for a total of 3 hours and 15 minutes before announcing that they had reached a verdict. Brooks was convicted on 6 counts of intentional homicide.
On November 16th, 2022, during his sentencing, as victims and family members spoke, Brooks could be seen rolling his eyes, smacking his chest, and slowly clapping. What a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And he then delivered a long-winded, rambling statement for over 2 hours.
That's such bullshit.
His talents could have, imagine if this never happened.
If he wasn't an asshole.
Yeah, like he could have,
Just imagine.
Just imagine the skills that he could have used to help the world instead of hurting it.
Yeah. So for the first time since the parade attack, Brooks did finally manage to apologize for what happened at the parade, but not for the fact that he was responsible for it. He told the court he needed help for his mental illness and wanted to be sent somewhere where he could receive it in the form of medication.
What, and just take his medication and skip through the tulips in town? No, sir.
No.
So the judge read aloud portions of reports written by 4 mental health experts who examined Brooks. This was in regard to whether or not he could represent himself in court. Their findings were that while he has a personality disorder and is disruptive, he did not suffer from mental disease or defect and was intelligent and articulate enough to defend himself.
The judge said that he knew right from wrong and that he clearly knew what he was doing at the time of the attack, and there was something wrong with his character that allowed him to intentionally and knowingly commit these acts, but he was not mentally ill.
Brooks was sentenced to serve 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. So now let's get into where are they now? Tell us, Beth.
Well, Darrell Brooks received an additional 9 years for the domestic violence incident with Erica Patterson. He was also charged with felony intimidation of a victim because he called her from jail, threatening her if she didn't drop the domestic violence charges.
The parade attack triggered a backlash against bail reform. And this was not the only incident that triggered that backlash.
Yeah.
After 2020, when all those people were getting out, this was happening all over the country.
Yeah.
And the office of the Milwaukee District Attorney John T. Chisholm, which had set his bail, said in a statement that, quote, the state's bail recommendation in this case was inappropriately low in light of the nature of the recent charges and the pending charges against Mr. Brooks, unquote.
They said that the bail was a result of human error of an overworked assistant district attorney.
What?
And the court commissioner who set the recommended cash bail for Brooks just weeks before the tragedy was reassigned to non-criminal matters indefinitely.
Uh-huh. System failure.
System failure.
System failure alert. Yeah. Like, I'm just picturing red lights flashing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the red lights flashing are people's lives. Like, that's what's so unfortunate about these system failures.
Yeah.
In the wake of the tragedy, white supremacists, here they come, used the tragedy to sow racist and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories on the ground and online. They have blamed both Jewish people and the liberal media for covering up, quote, black-on-white attack, unquote.
White supremacists often exploit current events to support or confirm their pre-existing beliefs. Although Brooks had made some hateful posts on social media and indicated support for some conspiratorial beliefs, there is no evidence that he was a member of any organized group.
Do they need to be members though to
They
hold
don't,
these
no,
beliefs?
but
they don't need a club card. You know
no,
what I'm
they
saying?
don't. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
But read on.
So, given Brooks's race and the race of the victims, white supremacists have claimed that the incident was a, quote, anti-white terror attack.
So what they're saying is that he did it on purpose. He was attacking
to kill white people. Right.
To kill white people.
Right.
And I don't think that's true.
I don't think so either. And I think I mentioned that in my takeaways. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But despite the fact that there is no evidence of this, it just happens that Waukesha is a very white town. And if your goal is to murder people and you're in a white town, guess
run
what?
Over whoever
if
is
your
there.
Goal, if your goal is to sell Girl Scout cookies in a white town, all your customers are going to be white. Like, that's just the way it works.
Yeah, that's how it is. I don't think he planned on running these people over at the parade either. I think he just
was in a fit of
ran
rage.
into the parade and he was raging. So Brooks is currently incarcerated at the Wisconsin Secure Program Facility, originally the Supermax Correctional Institute, a Wisconsin Department of Corrections prison for men located in Boscobel, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin is also one of those places that's been accused of prison gerrymandering and using the mostly black and brown prison population in order to get more resources for the people who are not incarcerated there, but using the incarcerated population's human numbers to count towards their resources.
Gross.
Anyway, that's a topic for another day. Let's get into our takes, Beth. What did you think about this case?
So to me, it sounds like mental illness did play a major role. Mm-hmm. And I give the mental health experts who examined Brooks and said he didn't suffer from mental illness a big old side eye.
Yeah. What?
But if you're going by the law and what the law allows as far as, what counts as mental illness, if you know right from wrong, you're competent to stand trial. And I don't think that they allow you to use a insanity defense. But that doesn't mean that you don't suffer from a mental illness.
Sure.
Yeah, and his family said he had bipolar disorder. Like we said, we don't know if that was correct, if that diagnosis was correct, or if he suffered from something else.
Right.
And his behavior in court was extreme. Mm-hmm. It sounds to me like with all this sovereign citizen stuff and the way he presented things, the way he talked, like he had some kind of a thought disorder. And thought disorders are most commonly associated with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorders, but can also be a symptom of bipolar disorder or even depression, ADHD, or autism. And like we discussed, there was a documentary about crystal meth, so I'm curious to know if there was a drug addiction involved. If you have a mental illness, even if it's just depression or something like that, if you add drugs into the mix, it's not good.
Not good.
Not
no
good.
Bueno.
Yeah. But that was the only reference to methamphetamine use that I found. Nobody else said he was using or anything, so I don't know.
Okay.
And a personality disorder was mentioned, but I couldn't find anything else about that. I imagine it was probably antisocial personality disorder, probably with narcissism, but again, couldn't find anything about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it played a role, but as my wise friend Beth says, not an excuse.
No.
But maybe an explanation.
Yeah, definitely an explanation.
Yeah, my thought was he is just like an agent of chaos, and violence.
Mm-hmm.
And he was wilding out in the courtroom, which I don't think I've seen it as extreme as that, but
yeah,
he
was behaving like a child.
Yeah, really unreasonable. And again, shout out to the judge. I don't usually say nice things about judges, but this judge really, I think, tried to, like, there was a point in the trial where all the victims gave impact statements. All the surviving family members and stuff gave impact statements. And when the guilty verdict was read, now this doesn't normally happen in a trial, but the judge allowed people to clap.
Oh, wow.
Because the community was like relieved.
Yeah.
And normally judges don't let that kind of shit fly in a courtroom either.
They're like, don't do it.
Yeah, but this judge like let it fly, like, because I feel like she is a real public servant and knew that the public in her community needed that moment.
Yeah.
And so shout out to the judge. It really, again, I listened to the whole trial. It really bothered me. He brought his ex-girlfriend in, Erica, and was questioning her on the stand.
Oh, jeez.
Just to torture her.
To do it.
It was sick and fucking evil, and the judge shut that shit down. Because he probably would have questioned her for hours, days, if the judge had not.
Wow.
This judge was really something. She was great. And then he literally went from one crime to another.
Yeah.
Beating his girlfriend in the car and then to the parade. And, you know, I get that he had a mental illness diagnosis, but so do many people, and they don't kill and hurt other people in this way.
So the technical term is something ain't right.
Yeah. It's an ancient term.
There was something wrong with him.
Yeah. So right. And this sovereign citizen thing, I went down a whole rabbit hole. Wesley Snipes.
It's interesting. It's really dumb.
A lot of white
but
supremacists. Yeah, they have their own special license plates because they don't believe they need to register their cars. They don't believe that they have to have driver's license. Like, it's interesting. And again, I thought it was white shit, but it's not. And it's growing, actually, globally. There's sovereign citizens here and in other parts of the world. But it's a fascinating concept. Also, I was thinking just about the carnage and the chaos at the scene and hearing people describe what happened and hearing people describe the sounds. Yeah. Not just the screams, but the sounds of bodies being impacted. Yeah. Was really, like, it just took me to, it sent me. And I remember when this happened, and I remember how horrifying it was to hear about it on the news. And just at this moment, while we are talking about this case, after researching it pretty extensively amongst ourselves, just thinking about the people in the community who still to this day are here and having to deal with the pain of this horror every day. And I mean, it's the holidays, right? And so bringing all that up again, just our hearts go out to everybody who's dealing with the aftermath of this case.
Beth, where can the people find us?
Our website is fruitloopspod.com, and we use Fruit Loops Pod for all of our social media.
This is a weekly podcast, and new episodes drop every Thursday. So until next time, look alive, y'all. It's crazy out there.
introduce you to Barry Clue, an authorised financial advisor from New Zealand and a very special kind of stain on humanity.
He was a very knowledgeable young guy.
He was a registered financial advisor.
Type of guy that was bending over backwards to help you.
Now, you could be forgiven for thinking that Barry sounds like a great guy, and you'd be right. Well, right up until the point when you're wrong.
It was all fictitious.
She stole from my son, who has a disability.
Chris never knew. He died believing that we're all taken care of.
A psychopath is somebody who lacks empathy, acts impulsively. I think there's a strong case that Barry might be all of those things, actually.
To find out how Barry Clue stole over $15 million from 81 victims, subscribe to Clueless, The Long Con. That's Clueless, spelt Klooghless.
Is the pressure of your wedding day being perfect from sunrise to sunset weighing on your mind? Planning a wedding is stressful, but guess what? We are here to help. On the Bridechilla podcast, we celebrate love and help you plan your wedding day. We're all about keeping it real and having fun every step of the way. So whether you're just starting to plan or counting down the days, we're here to help you stay cool, calm, and collected. We have expert tips and amazing guests, like wedding dress designer Haley Page. Let's get this party started and embrace your inner Bridechilla. Listen to Bridechilla wherever you get podcasts or visit us at thebridechilla.com.